Hi everybody, Mike Beer here. We got a couple of graded stakes races on the turf at Monmouth Park on Saturday afternoon. We'll begin things with race number 11. This one's for the fillies and mares. It's the grade 3 Eatontown Stakes. It's a 1.16 miles out of the chute on the turf course down there at Monmouth Park. Let's take a look at this field right now. We have 8 fillies or mares entered for this $150,000 purse. This is a very interesting race. You do have, as you can see there on the morning line, a 3-1 favorite drawn to the outside in Gina Romantica. This is her first start as a 4-year-old. She closed out her 3-year-old campaign, a late switch to turf there just for her final few starts, and she did close out that campaign with a grade 1 win at Keeneland. She's your morning line favorite, a couple of 7-2 shots down towards the inside in the number 3 Consumer Spending, stablemate of Gina Romantica from the Chad Brown barn. Just overall really solid form. She's second off the layoff here. And the number 1, surprisingly, for trainer Shug McGahee. Those two fillies exit the same race, a prep race at Aqueduct in their most recent start in the grade 3 Bogey. They finished basically within a neck or so of each other in second and third that day. I thought they both ran pretty well there. So they're the second and third, the co-second choices on the morning line. After that, you do have a horse who, it feels like she's got a little bit something to prove here in the number 6, Malavath. She's 4-1 on the line. She could certainly take some money in here. This is a filly now who ran in the Breeders' Cup Mile at the end of last year, was beaten less than 2 lengths in that race. Going back to her 2-year-old campaign, she was a close second in another Breeders' Cup race, the Juvenile Fillies Turf. She is second off the layoff here as well, second out as a 4-year-old, second start for Christophe Clement. The difference is she was terrible in her most recent start. We'll see whether or not she can improve in this race. Pretty well matched field, though. Very interesting race with a favorite off the layoff here, although you don't really usually have to worry about that with trainer Chad Brown involved. Here's the Timeform US Pace Projector. You can see not a lot of speed involved here. They don't give it the blue bar slow pace designation. They do have the number 7, Katie's a Lady, who's one of the long shots in this race, out there on the lead. Katie's a Lady. Yeah, she's a speed horse. I'm assuming they're going to come out of there and try to make the lead with her. And I won't be surprised when she gets there. I just didn't think she'd be loose in this race. The number 4, Scottish Star, has plenty of pace. I think, her best chance to win a race like this one is just to get forward from the start here and just see if she can either make the lead or just keep right up close to it. They're certainly not going to let a horse get loose on them, I don't think. It's also worth pointing out that the 2 Chad Brown horses both have tactical speed. Neither one of them are going to come out of there looking for the lead in this race, but they're not going to be far away either. So even if Katie's a Lady does make her way to the early lead in this race, and that is certainly a possibility, I just don't know that she's necessarily one that some of these other fillies are going to be that worried about out there. She'd probably just need to run the race of her life if she's going to win here, although she does come off of a front-running win in her most recent start over course and distance. We'll start out talking about the number 1. Surprisingly, trainer Shug McGahee. It's really, typical of horses from this barn. Keeps getting better every time Shug sends her out there. She won the first 2 turf starts of her career when they brought her to that surface last year off the layoff. Actually wound up winning 3 of her first 4 career turf starts, including the grade 3 Endeavor earlier this year down at Tampa over Scottish Star. That was a good performance. Here's her most recent start. This is that Bogey I was mentioning. She's in here. So we'll look at this replay now. She's going to wind up 3rd. Consumer Spending also in here. Consumer Spending is going to finish 2nd, but they're going to finish sort of right next to each other at the end of this race behind Market Segmentation, another Chad Brown horse who just, wired this field, had a really good trip, got right up close, won very easily. These 2 horses, Consumer Spending, surprisingly, had no chance to catch her. Of course, Market Segmentation did come back to win a grade 1 race in New York last weekend. That was sort of a phony win there on a really slow pace where they just turned her loose, but she's still a really good horse. I thought surprisingly ran well in here, and maybe she's the one who deserves a little bit more credit for her effort here just because this pace was not fast. Surprisingly was rated to the back. She was always on the outside and off the rail in that race. You saw her at the top of the stretch there come about 4 wide. And I thought she finished up pretty well. No chance to win there. Couldn't quite get up for second. I thought she ran fine in there. More than anything else about surprisingly too, I really liked her effort 2 starts back. She was 3rd in the grade 2 Hillsborough in that start, but I thought she ran really well that day with a trip that didn't quite work out for her. I like her form right now. I like the way that she's headed. I think she could take a step forward here, and I like that she's drawn to the rail. Maybe she pulls the right kind of trip in this race. Vergara's the 2, a contender in here for sure. I think the questions are twofold as far as Vergara goes. Can she take one more step forward? Because I feel like she's probably going to have to do that in here. She is second off the layoff, though, second out as a 4-year-old, however. And is she a little better going distances that are a little bit longer than this? That was sort of my position on her as a 3-year-old. I just felt like she was one of those fillies who looked like she would, she really stayed strongly in her races. It felt like she appreciated more ground. We'll see if that's actually the case. I don't know that that's necessarily been confirmed. Her major win last year did come at Kentucky Downs, going a mile and 5/16. They stretched her out that day. She ran well and got the job done. We'll see. I wouldn't say this is too short for her. She's also tactical enough to get a trip in this race. I mean, she's one of those horses at a price. I don't think it's impossible. I can't say that I love her in here. I do have some questions about her, but she's, far from in over her head in this race. The number 3, Consumer Spending, one of the Chad Brown fillies. She's just pretty good. She's been good from the start. And she's another one who I think can get a good trip in this race. I liked the way, particularly that she came back off the layoff last year as a 3-year-old. She won her first 2 starts. They ran her in the Belmont Oaks going longer. She wound up 3rd in that race, but did not run poorly at all. I really liked the way that she was finishing up in that race to gain some ground at the end and get 3rd. And then they, only 1 start after that towards the end of August at Saratoga, the Lake Placid. She wound up, maybe a disappointing 4th that day, but that race was kind of a joke. Her stablemate Haughty, who isn't even that good, I don't think. They just let her walk on the lead, and you could see Manny Franco riding Consumer Spending, that they just took a hold of her from the gate, took her back, let the stablemate get loose. It's almost like they set that race up for Haughty. This horse made a bid off the turn. It looked like she was going to run, and they just couldn't really sustain it, flattened out at the end. And then we didn't see her again after that, so she got some time off. So maybe there was some other issue going on as well. She came off the layoff in that Bogey that we watched before. She ran fine in there. Second best to her stablemate market segmentation. She's a major player in this race. The number 4 is Scottish Star. She's going to have speed in this race. She's going to go forward. I guess maybe more than anything else, we'll find out how good she is in this race. She has figures that make her a contender in this race. She has the right running style for this race. She could have the jump on some of her main contenders in this race. I guess the real question is, how good is she overall? I can't say that I loved her 2 losses. Not that she was badly beaten second in both the Endeavor and the Hillsborough down at Tampa over the winter. I didn't think she ran great in either of those races, but she did get the job done, or she did, run well to finish second in both of those. Surprisingly got her 3 starts back in the Endeavor. She was only second best last time. And then her most recent start, the local prep for this race, which was the Miss Liberty Stakes. And she just didn't really have an excuse in that race up there on the pace. She was doing a little bit of racing there, but she was no match in the stretch. And speaking of that, Miss Liberty, why don't we just take a look at that replay right now, because Spirit and Glory, the number 5, was also in there, and she's the winner of that race. So we'll look at the replay now. Spirit and Glory got a really good trip in this race. She just always sat within range of the leader. She's all alone tracking around the final turn. And then you see her rider there, Nick Juarez, take the inside route at the top of the stretch. Gets through down there. A good finish to drive by Scottish Star, who, by the way, was 2-5 in this race. I like the way that Spirit and Glory finished that race off. And she was just much the best at the end. New top by her speed figure for her. That was her second start off the layoff. Now she's 3rd off the layoff. She could improve again as still a relatively lightly raced 4-year-old. And it's not like when she got over here last year, she didn't show any ability. She won her stateside debut with a big late run from way out of it. And then 2 starts later, won the Virginia Oaks. And I thought she also looked good winning that day from further off the pace. But she showed in that most recent start that she can stay closer if she has to and still produce a finish. And that's just a really good sign for her. I like the way that she's headed. She's going to be a fair price in this race. And I think, she's a horse that I wouldn't overlook in here at all. The 6 is Malavath, who we touched on before. She obviously has the credentials to be a really strong player in this race. She did start out as a sprinter over in France. They came over and stretched her out for the first time in that juvenile fillies turf. She ran a good second that day. She didn't have an excuse. The one thing about her with the first 2 stateside starts, where she ran well both times, she got sort of similar trips in both of those races. Didn't break well either time. They just took her right back off the pace and got her over towards the inside. And I thought both of those trips, in the juvenile fillies turf and in the Breeders' Cup Mile last November, those trips worked out for her. And she just wasn't quite good enough and didn't get the job done. Again, though, she was only beaten, less than 2 lengths in the Breeders' Cup Mile at the end of last year with a triple-digit buyer. So obviously the talent is there. I can't say I'm her biggest fan, and you do have to wonder about that most recent start and the Plenty of Grace. It was off the layoff. Maybe she needed it. She was awful in that race. It was a super slow pace. She was close to it and saving ground in there, and she just didn't fire at all. I suspect she'll run better here. It's your call what kind of price you want to take on her. I think I'm going to stand against her again. Katie is a lady we touched on. She's the speed in here. She's going to be a big price. I don't think she's good enough to beat these horses. The number 8 is Gina Romantica, morning line favorite off of a grade 1 win the last time we saw her. Again, listen, they switched her to turf for her final 3 starts as a 3-year-old. She won the risk averse from, pretty far off the pace at Saratoga at a price, too, that she didn't take a ton of money that day. I did think that she ran well there. She got a great trip in that race. The pace was there for her, and she had a clean run into it. But once she altered course in the stretch, she did have to alter a little bit to get clear. She really kicked it. I like the way that she finished in there. Her second turf start in the Pebbles, another good performance. She didn't quite get there. A stablemate of hers wired her Faith in Humanity. This filly did make up ground at the end of that race, though. And then the QE2, and we'll look at the replay of that right now. I mean, she got another great trip in this race. It's not the strongest QE2 field that we've ever seen, so I think that those are things that you want to take into consideration. But she just always traveled in this race. She always looked like she was going to run. She got the seam there, as you see, in mid-stretch to just take over, and she's clear under the wire. She's best in this race, 91 buyer speed figure, good performance. You don't have to worry about Chad Brown off of layoffs. I suspect that she'll come back ready here. And she's easy to make a case for, whether you want to bet her as the favorite, and it seems like she probably will be the favorite in this race. That's your call. I'm not way against her in this race, but I did not pick her in the Grade 3 Eatontown Saturday at Monmouth Park. I'm going to go with the horse towards the inside, surprisingly. I like the way she's headed. I like where she's drawn. I like her last few races. Even though she didn't win two back or last time, I can make excuses for those races, and I feel like she ran really well both times. I think she fits right in here, and maybe she's the third choice in this race. If she was, I think that'd be good enough for me. It's sort of a wide open race, though. I think there are cases to be made outside of the 2 Chad Brown runners. But, knowing Chad Brown in these races, they'll probably run 1-2 and complete the exacta. I'm going 1-3-8 in the first of the 2 graded stakes races on the grass at Monmouth Park on Saturday. It's the Grade 3 Eatontown. It's race number 11. The approximate post time is 5:12 Eastern Time. Good luck.